Welcome, Legacy Church family, to our Monday morning recap. This is something we've been doing for several weeks now. I think last week was the only week we missed, but we're glad to be back this morning. And Monday morning recap is an opportunity for us to simply go back and revisit yesterday's message and hopefully help drive it more home and help it become more embedded in your heart. And so that's the purpose. Before we get into that, just want to remind everybody that this coming Sunday is a big, big day. It's a great day because we celebrate the resurrection of the Lord. And it's also a great day because out of all the days of the year, this is one of the highest attended services for non-believers that we have in the year. And so we're excited about what God is going to do this coming Easter Sunday. Just want to let you know, we will be having two services, 9:15 and 11. Yesterday we had one service because it was Legacy Sunday, but we will be back at two services for Easter. And we encourage you to invite your friends and family. Embrace your calling. That's one of the power shifts we talked about, is embracing your calling, that we've been given this mission. And so invite somebody, reach out to somebody this week. Be intentional about sharing your story, building that bridge of invitation. But next Sunday, please invite people. We're believing for God to transform lives. This past Sunday, yesterday, we had, I think there were over 10 people that gave their hearts to the Lord for the first time or made rededications to the Lord. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it was an incredible service.
And we're believing Easter is going to be even greater. We are really
Amen.
believing for transformation. To all the parents, we want you to know we are going to have an Easter egg hunt. We have 5,000 eggs, and it will be immediately following the second service. Okay, so the second service starts at 11. We usually end at about 12:20. From there, we'll immediately move over to our property next door, and everything will be lined out for you. We'll have it divided up by age groups, and it's going to be an awesome time. So come bring your family and just have a great day. Okay, it's going to be a day of celebration, a day of transformation, and a day for your kids to have some fun and just great fellowship for the whole church body.
Yeah.
So please help us get ready for Easter. We're excited about it. Pastor Brooklyn has something to talk about also.
Yeah, so speaking of Easter, at the beginning of the year, we always come together and just talk about the most important things that we feel like God is leading us to do as a church. And one of the things was serve days. We should always be mindful of serving as believers, but this is just something that we wanted to be more intentional about. So 3 to 4 times throughout this year, we have intentionally put serve days on the calendar. And so this Saturday is our first serve day. So we are encouraging our church family and honestly anybody watching this to come and serve. So it's going to be kind of multifaceted. Just different things that we're going to be needing. So I'm going to go count, how many eggs have come in. If we are a few short, we're going to have people helping us stuff eggs here. We're going to have people going out into the community, inviting people to our services. I imagine we're going to have some staying here, just kind of getting our hospitality areas ready and anything else here in the church that we might need help with. So there's going to be many different opportunities, but it's just come just ready and willing to serve.
Yeah.
And it's such a joy to be able to do that. And we would love for you to just come be a part. And then we're just getting ready for Easter, again, believing for salvations, believing for, many new families to come in and for us just to be able to connect with them. So we're super, super excited about that.
Yeah, we are excited. And serve days are important. We decided we needed to make them intentional.
Yeah.
So this is not just for the evangelism team. This is for the whole church. And so come out and join us.
It's
and
from 9 to noon.
9 to noon.
Forgot to say that.
So we're not going to keep you all day long.
3 hours.
3 hours. And we'll get a lot done and go out and be able to invite people and make sure the facilities are ready. So join us for that. Well, Pastor Brooklyn, yesterday we wrapped up our series entitled Power Shifts, the shifts that are necessary to come into alignment with God and his purposes. It's something the Lord put in my heart that we as a church globally, but also locally, we really need to examine what we're doing, and not only as a church, but in our own lives, and ask ourselves the question, are we in alignment with God and his purposes? In other words, we're not just doing our own thing, but as God leads, we're following him. We're in alignment with him and his purposes. And so we've been really focusing on that. And so yesterday we wrapped up the series, and we did Power Shift number 4. And it was one of my favorites because we talked about attitude. Now, attitude is something that we all struggle with, okay? And I said yesterday a statement, attitudes are like opinions. Everybody's got one, but just because you have one doesn't make it good. All right, there's a lot of people who have opinions, but not all their opinions are good. Same with attitudes. We all have one. It just doesn't mean it's good because you have one. You have to be intentional about making it good. And so we read 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, and it says, therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourselves with the same attitude, because he who has suffered in his body is done with sin. So that's significant. But as a result, it's the result of your attitude towards suffering does not live the rest of his earthly life for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. So if we want to live the will of God, we have to shift our attitude to be in alignment with God and to be like Christ. And yesterday I thought it was funny. I said, okay, so everybody look at your attitude, and on a scale from 1 to 10, 0 and 1 being not very good, and 10 being just like Jesus, where would you rate yourself as far as your attitude goes in that spectrum? And, I then kind of played with everybody and said, okay, now I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. No, I didn't. But, oftentimes we don't reflect inwardly about the stuff that matters. Yeah. We don't take time to really look at our attitude. But your attitude shapes everything about your life. As a matter of fact, there was something yesterday that I didn't get to bring out, but talking about your attitude, the attitude you adopt has a profound effect on your life. So here's what your attitude determines. Your attitude determines your health, your potential and growth, your character, your influence, your self-esteem and confidence, your faith, and your legacy. Your attitude determines every one of those. Now, we defined attitude as, we go back up, attitude is an inward feeling expressed through outward behavior. So everybody has this inward feeling. It's the way you get up in the morning. It's part of you. It's the way you look at life, and it manifests in outward behavior. It represents your disposition, your outlook, and your character. All those things come together to form your attitude. And Peter, in this epistle, the church is suffering. They're going through great persecution, and he challenges them, hey, quit focusing on the suffering. In other words, you should be past that point. I think sometimes we're still having to go back and say, why do Christians suffer? And that's an important point, but Peter's telling us to go beyond that. Yeah. Suffering's part of life. Now we need to look at our attitude towards suffering.
Yeah, something that he had said yesterday was that your attitude tells people who you really are and what you're really like. And I thought that was so profound because it's just the truth, that, how you respond to situations really reveals so much about you and your heart, and what you're like. Your character is revealed in that moment. And,
yes.
And something you also kind of talked about is what kind of witness are you being concerning your attitude? Yep. Because people are watching, especially nowadays. They're watching us, and they're watching how we respond to suffering.
Yes.
They're watching how we respond to things like not getting our way, so to speak. And that was so funny when you asked me that this morning, because yesterday he literally said, I think I wrote it down, but what was it? I'm trying to find it on here. You talked to me about it this morning. I'm going blank, guys. I'm going blank.
I'm going blank too, because I don't.
No, when you were talking, you said, I told people to get over it.
Yes.
right when things don't go your way. Yesterday, he literally from the pulpit said, guys, when things don't go your way, you have to get over it. And a few people like said something out loud. We couldn't really tell what
I was
it was.
like,
And then
what did that mean?
It got like really quiet. And so when he came in this morning, he was like, hey, did y'all notice that when I said that? And I was like, you know what? Probably because it's the truth. And a lot of times we don't like to hear the truth, but sometimes when things don't go our way, we just have to get over it.
Yes.
You can't change it. It
Yes.
is what it is, but we control how we respond to those
Yes.
moments. So
Yeah, our attitude is our choice. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is if your attitude is negative, or if it's based in the temporary, it will fluctuate all the time. Your attitude will be up and down. It'll be all over. But if it's based on the eternal, it doesn't mean you don't have those fluctuations. But while the temporal fluctuates, the eternal gravitates. It gravitates toward God. It gravitates toward hope. It gravitates toward faith. It gravitates toward trusting God. It gravitates toward believing that in spite of all the negative, God is still at work. And I think that's one of the things. I think the comment I made yesterday was, there's still people that are bitter over the election. And look, I understand. I know that there's things that went on in this election that we really have no idea of how great the scope was. But here we are in March, getting ready for Easter, and Christians aren't talking about Easter and the goodness of God and celebrating Jesus. They're talking about our country, and they stole the election, and we got to fight back. And I'm like, look,
they're
guys.
still complaining.
They're still complaining.
Yeah.
And I understand your frustration, but your frustration cannot determine your daily direction. Because if it does, you will live a frustrated life and you will never be happy. And you can't change anybody when you live frustrated. All you do is spill your frustration on people. And after a while, people aren't going to want to be around. And so our attitude is very, very important. So whether it's the election, whether it's COVID, whether it's whatever else we're going to face, don't let your attitude become bitter or tainted because of that. Always let it be eternal in its focus and let it gravitate toward hope.
Well, it's that idea that, how you live is either going to draw somebody to Christ,
Yes,
or make them not want to pursue a relationship with him. And there's so much power in that.
yes. And yesterday we talked about the clarity of your attitude. You talk about attitude, it's kind of hard to put your finger on it. You know what it is when you see it, but in your own life, it's this feeling, and sometimes you don't know how to describe it, but it does spill out. It reveals the real you. It always will. But we talked about how do we clarify it? Well, Christ's attitude is what we measured against. And so when we looked at Philippians chapter 2, verses 5-11, when Paul says your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, I just came and wanted to make it simple. And so in that passage, there are three statements that we hear about Jesus, and they reveal his attitude. And so I said, these are three statements we need to grab hold of. These are easy things that we can clarify, we can identify, and we can apply. And the first statement is, I am a servant. Jesus in Philippians chapter 2, verse 5 says, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant. So Jesus took the position of a servant. He was the Son of God, but he became a servant. And so I think our attitude should be an attitude of a servant. I am a servant.
Well, it's humility.
It's humility.
And that's really hard for people sometimes that,
Yes.
We're not thinking of ourselves, but we're thinking of other people. We're thinking of the Lord. We're pursuing righteousness. We're becoming more like him.
Yes.
And what was he? He was humble.
Yes.
He was so humble, and
Yes.
so humility.
It's amazing, isn't it? He is the Son of God who created the heavens and the earth, but yet he became a servant. When you know who you are in Christ and you know that he's for you, then you can turn around and say, because of that, I'm going to live for others. I'm not going to live for myself. Because of what he's done in me, I choose to live as a servant. When I am a servant and my attitude is that, then if I don't get my way, I'm not going to pout and cry. Now, we have a tendency to still do that, but we want to be like Jesus.
Yep.
So I am a servant. Then we made this statement, number 2, I can do all things. Jesus, it says, in being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. He had to face that. He was God, but he was also fully man. He had to face the cross. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, he has this moment where he says, Father, if possible, let this cup pass from me. But if not my will, but your will be done. In other words, he was saying, God, I know this one thing, that you're faithful and good, and I can do all things through you. Yeah. And we need to have that attitude, not a I can't attitude. I can't do this. I can't witness. I can't change. I can't influence. No, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And Paul literally tells us that in Philippians chapter 4:13.
Which that was funny yesterday when you said that, because we have a 4-year-old son. His name is Zayden. And we just talked about that concept with him, because there's so many times when, he'll pull out all of his toys, and I tell him beforehand, hey, just know whatever you pull out, you have to put up. Well, it never fails. Every single time when we say, okay, you need to put him up, the first thing he says is, I can't. Like, there's too many. I can't. And we just kept hearing that. And so I finally was just like, I had this moment with him where I looked him in the eyes and I said, Zayden, we're not allowed to say that in our house anymore, because you can do all things through Christ. Like, yes. Just instilling that in his heart, that there is nothing that you can't do. It might be hard, but you can do it. So we don't allow that.
That's good.
I can't in our house anymore. Like, we really don't.
I think there's certain words we need to remove from our vocabulary because they become so part of us. John Maxwell, in his book, Today Matters, talks about that. We shouldn't have I can't. We should have I can. Yeah. We shouldn't have it's too hard, or I'm afraid, or, there's so many things that we don't realize those statements reflect our attitude.
Yes.
And they really determine our destiny. And then the last statement was, I will be transformed. Jesus went through all of that. As a result, he was transformed. He was fully God, but as a man, he grew and grew and grew through the things he suffered and became more obedient. And so this statement is simply saying, I will be changed. I choose to live a transformational life. So my attitude is daily, I'm looking and expecting God to change me. And I'm involved in that process. I'm intentionally looking and intentionally trying to change. I won't demand change of others until I have first demanded change of myself.
Yeah, that was so good. Yes.
And I think that's a huge thing. We expect everybody else to change, but we need to change.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yesterday was a great day, and our Legacy Sunday, we had a great time. The kids did a great job singing, and then I love the students when they did their children's short sermon on the armor of God. I thought that was funny.
If you didn't get to watch it yesterday, you have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, go back and see it. It's great. Well, Pastor Brooklyn, any last thoughts that you want to provide for us?
Yesterday I was just kind of taking this all in because, just attitude is such a hard thing to talk about and deal with. And especially, when you are going through hard things, and we realize, we all go through those moments where things are just tough. I think just in our own life, even in recent years, there's been, moment after moment after moment that we really have to stop and be like, how are we going to respond? Well, we're going to respond with faith. We're going to believe that this can change, that, God is capable. And that's another thing when we were talking to Zayden about, we're not saying I can't anymore. When I looked at him, I said, why, buddy? Because you're capable. You're smart. Like, you can do this. And that's what, I would even say to us is that we're so capable, not because it's our own strength, but because with God can change any bad attitude. Yes. He can change any hardened heart. He can change so many things, but man, just dealing with the inner, so that God can just move. And then, then we can outwardly just glorify him with our gifts and our talents and just in servanthood and in humility, and allow people to see that and allow them to connect with God through that.
Yeah. What a great teaching moment with your kid. That's huge. Today, as you go through your day, choose the right attitude. Make the choice to examine your attitude. And it can be the greatest day. You can have a great day if you choose to have a great day. All right? It's not about all that you go through. It's about how you deal with it. So I pray today that you choose to be like Christ in your attitude and make that power shift. As you do, you're going to align more with God and his purposes. All right. Thank you so much, Legacy Church. Thank you, Pastor Brooklyn, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you Easter Sunday. Get the word out and let's go for it. It's going to be a great day. God bless.